Hi, it's Xackadee, how you doing? So it's been a while since I made a video, I've kind of forgotten how to do that, and you should see the amount of dust that came off my camera equipment when I brought it out. But you guys want to know what my thoughts are on Kingdom Hearts 3? I thought, well, let's make a Xackadee video to discuss it. You know, this is the Xackadee official Kingdom Hearts 3 review thing, so, you know, spoilers abound. Don't look in the comments if you haven't played the game, and don't watch all of this video if you haven't played the game. But I'm going to review Kingdom Hearts 3 right here and now. I've actually done some research. I've played the game, but like I've also written down my thoughts, so I have something to refer to instead of just talking randomly and rambling, which I will do anyway because that's what I do best. Yeah, I've thought about a few different ways of doing this. I thought about making it nice and fancy edited, but I have not had the time. I've been very busy, and making videos has become less of a passion recently, I'll be honest, but I'm still going to keep doing it, and I still like doing it, so I'm just going to do it this way, the way that typically works out well for me. Talking head. I'm just going to talk at you, and you're going to listen because it's my video and you don't have a choice, but you can also comment and complain about how my opinions are dumb. I don't mind. People do that all the time. So, Kingdom Hearts 3. Yeah, it's a game now. It exists. It's existed for months. It's almost existed for a year. I have been very slow, and you know, it's old now. It's an old game. You don't even care about this. You're busy waiting for the next big video game, which is probably, I don't know, Final Fantasy VII Remake. I'm very excited for that, by the way. I'm very looking forward to it. Okay, yeah, alright. You know what? First of all, I can't talk. Alright, yeah, you know what? You guys are probably just going to want to know right off the bat. Do I like it? Kingdom Hearts 3? Good game? Bad game? I really liked it. I really liked it. It's a really good game. Really enjoyed it. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Very good game. It's not perfect. It's got problems. We'll get into them. Let's not focus on the negative all the time. It's a good game. Let's not remember it as a bad game. It definitely isn't. Definitely isn't. But it has problems. It does have problems. First of all, on a technical level, right? Kingdom Hearts 3 looks amazing. You guys seen it? Just watch a trailer for it. You don't even need to play the game. It's so gorgeous. There was a whole sequence in the game which just completely recreated the Let It Go sequence from Frozen, and it did so almost perfectly, like 1-to-1. It was gorgeous and incredible, and wow, like this is just, wow, Square Enix, they know how to make a game look good, if nothing else. And I love that it carries over from gameplay to cutscenes. Like, oh man, gone are the fish faces. You guys remember when cutscenes looked like this?
I've been looking for you, and Kairi too, with their help.
Who are they?
We visited so many places and worlds, looking for you.
Really? Well, what do you know? I never would have guessed.
No more, friends, no more. They look like people. Haha. Anime people, but you know, that's always a good thing. Also, I was a little disappointed. I wanted to see more 2D Disney worlds in the game. I knew what I was getting by the time I went into it, and most of it was, most of it was 3D animation, with one world that was live action and one world that was, 2D animated. Hercules. We need more worlds like that. I want to see more 2D animated characters done in, like, with these graphics, with this art style, because man, they nailed the Hercules world. It looks beautiful. All the characters look perfect. And in general, of course, the scale, the effects, like being able to explore like the entire city of, what was it, Thebes in Hercules? Exploring the entire city of San Francisco in the Big Hero 6 world. Oh man, and the whole open ocean. The Pirates of the Caribbean world. The scale of things, it's incredible, it's beautiful, it's gorgeous. Whatever else you think about Kingdom Hearts 3, it is a technical marvel, let us never forget that. Also another unanimously perfect thing about the game, the soundtrack. Gosh, I can't wait to hear more of the soundtrack in more detail, because I still haven't done that yet, it's been a while. It's a great soundtrack. From the tracks that are sort of like redone versions of old ones, to tracks that are like remixed versions of old ones, to the new tracks. Just so much great music. Yoko Shimomura has not lost her touch. Beautiful music. Such a good soundtrack. I could gush about it for hours, but I won't because we have other things to get on with. And you know what? It was fun. Kingdom Hearts 3 was a fun game to play. I don't care what anyone says. You know, people complain about the challenge. Oh, it's not as fluid as Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix. I don't care. It was a fun game. Right? It was so fun. I got to run up a mountain. Well, I say a mountain. I did get to run up a mountain, but I also ran up a little mound of dirt and punched a lava monster in the face with a keyblade. That's not really a punch. Point is, I got to punch. My instinct is just to think that everything's a punch. I got to fight the Titans. And that was the first major boss of the game. That was how the game started. Just so many cool things in the game. Meeting the characters. My gosh, the Tangled world is so precious. It was so precious, just hanging out with Rapunzel and fighting monsters with her and Flynn Rider. It was just it was so wholesome. Gosh, the characters were on point. The Pixar worlds were handled beautifully. Getting to interact with the characters, the character developments that they went through was really nice. It was just Good stuff. Good stuff. Let's be honest though, it didn't wrap everything up. And to be fair, I don't think it was ever going to. Kingdom Hearts 3 had a lot to answer for, a lot of characters we kind of wanted to know more about, and we didn't really get that. Like, look, this is a game that had Marluxia and Larxene in it, back for the first time since Chain of Memories, like properly back as the people that they are. Well, sort of. Are they still nobodies? See, there were a few things that just I didn't get. Like, they didn't really make it clear. After the whole situation of, oh, all the organization members are coming back as real people. Are they? They kind of talk like they're still nobodies. When you defeat them, they kind of talk like they're still nobodies. And I don't get it. I just don't get it. I'm not sure what was going on there. I guess the big issue is that these are characters we haven't seen too much of, we don't know too much about, and we didn't really get much more of them, you know? I feel like, shouldn't this really be the game where we actually learn what characters like Demyx and Luxu, what their real names are? But apparently that's something that we'll have to wait a bit longer for, even though we've already been waiting long enough. Even though we've already been waiting long enough to know who these characters are, seems like it's tying into Kingdom Hearts Key, then, you know, the Unchained Key, like, plotline. The foretellers and all that. The whole Keyblade War thing is a subplot thing that comes up a bit in Kingdom Hearts 3, but not to the extent of detail that they really do it justice, that they really properly cover it. And, you know, I feel like other games have done more with a little subplot or backstory or lore kind of thing. I feel like it's not something that would have been outside the realms of their ability to accomplish in actually telling us what the heck is going on, what is going on with the foretellers, what is the deal with them in the Keyblade War, how is that relevant at all to the events of Kingdom Hearts 3? And the reality is it's not. There were just a few parts of the game that were clearly setting up for the next Kingdom Hearts game. The foretellers are obviously going to be a bigger thing in the future, but right now they're not. So why are we seeing them? Why do we have to put up with this? Why is this a deal right now? Because it's set up. They're just setting up, and it's not set up that really ties into what's going on right now. It's not good setup. I'll be honest with that, it isn't. It's kind of annoying. And in the meantime, there's other things like, you know, remember that whole cutscene in Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix? The whole Chamber of Waking and all that? And Aqua's armor? And remember 0.2, Xehanort and Terra, their whole relationship thing, their struggle? They never really elaborated on that. There was a lot of stuff. There's still a lot of unanswered questions about, wait, what? When do we get an answer for this? Maybe we never will, you know? Some of it just doesn't tie together, which is frustrating. It's understandable, because Kingdom Hearts 3 is already a massive game, and it already does answer for a lot of stuff. But unfortunately, there are still a few things that weren't actually wrapped up. A few unanswered questions that never got properly tackled, and regrettably, we didn't really get that in full detail. Like, all the details of all the background information. I said it before and I'll say it again. Kingdom Hearts 3, actually the Kingdom Hearts series as a whole, it has a story that, bear with me on this, is not complicated. Yes, no, the Kingdom Hearts story is not complicated. It's mostly just good guys versus bad guys. What is complicated is the Kingdom Hearts lore. The lore is very complicated, and there is a lot of it, and more of it is introduced with every game, from time travel to replicas to nobodies to Heartless to Unversed to, you know, splitting people up to the Keyblade. There's a lot of lore, and when it gets mixed together, it becomes a bit of a complicated mess. Even though the actual stories are just, hey, I'm Roxas, I'm hanging out with my friends, I'm doing missions. Things are going wrong. These guys are screwing us over. Gotta do something about that. Even though the actual story is just, hey, I'm Sora, my friends are in danger, I gotta go help them. I'm gonna go on an adventure, explore worlds looking for them, and eventually I'll sort things out. That's all the story really is at the end of the day. But, you know, the lore, there's too much of it, and too much of it doesn't really get explained thoroughly, so you end up scratching your head not really fully understanding it, and that's a bit disappointing. Kingdom Hearts 3, no stranger to that. The power of waking. You know, that sounded like a neat thing in Kingdom Hearts Dream Drop Distance, like, there's this power that you've unlocked by exploring the sleeping worlds, and that will help you. No, it's a big deal. It's a very big deal. It is the entire purpose of the game. It is the entire reason that Sora is travelling through Disney World, which is not even that elaborated on. It's kind of just, hey, you need to do something while we wait for the main story to get started. Really, Kingdom Hearts 3, story-wise, could mostly have just been the last act of it. Really, the first two acts don't really contribute much, or at least could have been condensed, but it wouldn't make for a game, it wouldn't make for a Kingdom Hearts game, which is a big world-tripping adventure, so you know, we have what effectively does feel a lot like filler some of the time. It does set up for later on. You meet villains and you hear about their plans, but most of it doesn't amount to much. I can understand why people would feel disappointed, like the game is kind of empty until you get to the Keyblade Graveyard and have the big final showdown. And maybe one or two of the worlds like before that, which just, you know, involve a lot of big stuff with big characters. So, you know, basically what I'm trying to say is, I get and I completely understand that the game could have been done better. It could have. There's pacing-wise, could have been done better. Character-wise, could have been done better. Story-wise, could have been done better. There could have been more to it. And what lore was added in, again, Power of Waking stuff, and the replicas, and the whole organization, their whole thing, how they got together, and the Keyblade, it just kind of hits you out of nowhere with not little explanation. Like the Kingdom Hearts series has always done. Very good at it. Proud of it. Perhaps too much. So yeah, the point is, it's not a perfect story. It's not a perfectly done narrative. There you go. Narrative. That's the word. That's the magic word. That's the magic keyword. Narrative. Narrative was not the best. It could have been better. But it also wasn't bad. I still liked it. I still liked following the characters. I still liked following the journey. There's still a lot of character development going on for a lot of people. Sora is growing and he's like struggling with kind of the weight of responsibility once again. It's kind of interesting to see where he is because he's already been through a lot and he's matured a lot and he's just come to accept a lot of the stuff that he has to deal with. You know, he learns about the existence of people like Ventus and Roxas and Gion in them and he's like, yeah, sounds about right. He just kind of takes it in stride. And it's more about him just feeling worthy, I guess, and trying to do the right thing, but never really sure about the best way to go about that is. They kind of explore his naivety a little bit, but they don't do it as much as they could have done. So with that, let's go into a bit more detail with the story. Because, you know what? It started strong. It had a really good opening. The whole Olympus Coliseum world, great thing to get right into. Just big ol' bash. And, you know, right off the bat it was cinematic. Sora was trying to accomplish something. He's asking Hercules for advice. How do I get stronger? Because I need this specific power. And I thought you'd be the person to ask. And Hercules gives him some advice, which does kind of become relevant later on, actually. And that's cool. And he meets characters like Xigbar and Maleficent, and they set up for their evil machinations. And it's like, oh, what's going to happen next? You fight a big boss at the end. You accomplish your objective, well, one of your objectives, and you just kind of move on. And the whole time you're just learning how the game works, picking up all the different skills and abilities, how Kingdom Hearts 3 plays. You know, again, maybe other games are more fluid, I don't care. It was fun. It was fun to play, fun experience. Just great start. And then you go to Yensid's turn and he's like, alright, well, next stop is Twilight Town because you need to figure out what you're doing with Roxas, and Riku and Mickey are on their mission to find Aqua, which is basically a very simple, like, 5-minute thing that ended up taking the entire game because plot. And then, you know, after that opening level, it does just kind of slow down and it does just kind of like ease up a bit. Hayden Repents and Alette's voice actors were changed. I'm just throwing that in here right now. That just is a thing that happened, and I don't know why, because I liked their old voice actors, and I don't feel like the new ones are better or achieve any different thing. I'm not saying they're worse, I'm just saying, like, why were they changed? Why did they need to be changed? It's just, I don't get it. Also, their designs are different, even though they're effectively the same clothes, just with a palette swap, and you know, I feel like we can do better than that. Nomura's got a thing for plaid right now, or plaid, I don't know how you say it. I'm not a fashion person, I know nothing about fashion. I don't want to know anything about fashion. But yeah, then Sora meets Ansem and Xemnas. They just totally corner him, right in the second row, like, hey, what's up? You know, Sora, some bad things gonna happen to you. You see them afterwards, and they're watching him, and they're like, alright, we just gotta keep our distance. We don't want to kill him yet, but we will if he gets too out of hand. We want him to do what we want him to do. I have no idea what they wanted him to do. Alright, what was the organization's plan? Genuinely, think about what... As a writer, you kind of at some point need to consider a story from the perspective of other characters. Imagine Kingdom Hearts 3 from the perspective of the villains. What are they actually doing? What is every character trying to accomplish on a place-to-place basis? The organization show up and mess with Sora, but I don't really get what they're trying to guide him towards. They kind of taunt him about the power of waking, and it kind of sounds like they want him to abuse it. I mean, young Xehanort definitely gives that impression, but like, is that their long-term plan? Because it doesn't actually come up until, spoilers, the end of the game. Like, literally, the end of the game. And I think, was this their long-term plan? For Sora to win, but lose? I don't get it. I don't get what the organization were trying to get out of Sora, especially when it comes down to it. They just end up fighting him in the Keyblade Graveyard, and, you know, of course he's Sora, so he's like their greatest threat, and it's like, why didn't we do something about him earlier? You know, We had it planned. Goodness knows what it was, but they had one. And I said this before, but visiting the Disney worlds didn't really have a purpose. You know, visiting the Disney worlds makes a lot of sense in the first Kingdom Hearts game. You're looking around and you're just trying to figure out where people are. And to an extent, that's kind of true in Kingdom Hearts 2. Birth by Sleep kind of has a good reason. 358 over 2 days, weirdly enough, has the best justification because you're just doing missions for the organization. That is the best reason that we have ever had to go to a Disney World, because someone is sending you there with a task, because it's your darn job. Like here, it's just Sora on an adventure and he's just kind of going to this place to learn about himself. I don't know, he's looking to unlock the power of waking. He's like, hey, do you know how I can unlock the power of waking? Nope, fine, no problem, I'll just move on to the next place and go through another adventure. Like, it just feels like they're kind of running out of excuses, and I just really feel like they could have done better. I really feel like we could have had more of a reason to be in the Disney worlds. At this point, there's no one to look for, and there's no reason specifically to be in, like, Arendelle, but we're there, and we're doing stuff, and I just don't see the point. But that said, the Disney worlds were cool. Alright, look, the Disney worlds were great. I'll get into them in a bit more detail later, but I enjoyed it. Like I said, visually they're spectacular. The characters look amazing. It was nice to hang out with the characters and meet them and to do stuff with them. Sora and Donald and Goofy are great at interacting with them. We need more of that, and I don't feel like we really got enough of that in some places, but you know what? There was a lot more effort put into some of these worlds than there have been in other games, so you know what? Props! There was good, but there was bad, but there was also good. Really good stuff. Really, really good stuff. Of course, there were a few loose ends, and I know that we're getting DLC that will hopefully address some of this stuff. Where the heck did Demix go? He's just gone. Bye, mate. What? Come on, man. What's the deal? It's been ages, and to be honest, I haven't played the game since I first completed it, and I will get around to replaying it. I do want to replay it at some point, but my memory isn't completely there, so I don't really remember everything, but there are some things, like just some conversations that didn't end up going anywhere. Specifically Xemnas talking to Marluxia, Larxene, Demix, and Luxu. He's just like, you are all here for an important purpose. I hired you because of your connection to the Keybladers of old or something, and then the conversation just apparently ends there. we never hear what he said, and none of those characters at any point after that ever allude to having had their whole worldview changed. They don't act like they've had a massive revelation. It's like for them, that is where the conversation ended. Xemnas might as well have just left as soon as he said that stuff, and we never get to hear what it is. How is it relevant? What was he saying? I'm assuming it all ties into Kingdom Hearts Unchained Key or whatever, and that eventually, when that whole plot line gets developed more, because I know that some of the characters from this game are in it in some way, you know, we'll have more of a reason or an explanation, but there was a time, there really was, when I loved and adored every single piece of Kingdom Hearts media. There was nothing Kingdom Hearts that I didn't like. Even Recoded, the thing I was most negative about, was still good, just unnecessary for the most part, and mostly filler. That day is dead. Since Kingdom Hearts Chi came out, it was all downhill from there. I still love Kingdom Hearts, and I still love all the things they've done since then. I love Kingdom Hearts 3, but the Unchained Key, that whole plot line, I've really tried, but I can't get into it. I can't like it. It's ridiculous. It really is. And I know it's going to be more relevant in a later game, and maybe it'll be really good then, and maybe we'll really enjoy it then, but for now, it sucks, and I don't like it, and it doesn't do the Kingdom Hearts series any favours. Just throwing that out there. So, you know, going back to the lore, Kingdom Hearts 3 introduced a fair bit of lore. The biggest one, by far, I think, beyond the Power Awakening and all that, the final world. Kingdom Hearts 3 finally says, hey, so what actually happens when someone dies in the Kingdom Hearts world? And none of the turned into a Heartless, because that's not death. People always treat it like death, but it isn't. Heartless and nobodies, people think, they've been turned into monsters, now they get destroyed, and then they're dead. That's it. That's not how it works. Kingdom Hearts series never said it was how it works, and I will badger people about that until the day I die, but we now actually deal with proper death. When a character dies, there's the final world, which is like kind of a stepping off point. You know, you become a lost soul or a heart, and like the final world is kind of like, I don't know, you guys Harry Potter fans? The King's Cross Station chapter in the Deathly Hallows got massive vibes of that from that place. And it's kind of like that. It's like, you're almost dead, but you're not quite. You're just on the brink of death. And it's a world where you go to where you typically pass through there and then you become fully dead, but people who have a strong connection to life can cling there. And you get to properly explore that world because, well, you get to explore a whole mission in that world. You get to do a whole thing in that world because everybody dies. We just see a cutscene, and it's a really bad cutscene, frankly, in terms of choreography and the characters. Like, the characters just stand there and let themselves get killed, basically, and that sucks. That's bad. bad design for a cutscene, really, just in every way. But still, in a sense, it was still kind of cool to see, oh look, our heroes have been overwhelmed and defeated. The forces of darkness are too strong for them. They die. They just straight up die. But they are held onto life in the final world, and because of specifically Kyrie's power, really want to appreciate this, really want everyone to appreciate this, specifically because of Kyrie's power, Sora is able to hold on, literally piece himself back together, and use the power of waking to bring everyone back from the final world and rewrite reality. That is literally what happened. They end up losing their memories of the whole thing, but it still happened. It's still an event that Sora went through. It's still something that seems to have pushed him. This is what causes the ending of the game, which we'll get to later, because he abused the power of waking. Xehanort specifically warns him about this, and Xehanort, again, seems to be kind of aware of this, but it never again comes up. It does seem, to some people they've complained that it's an irrelevant part of the game that shouldn't have been there. I really liked the final world. If nothing else, it was an excuse to explore it. You get to hear the voices of people who have died, but have a reason to keep living. And it's tragic. It's really tragic. It's honestly one of the most depressing things the Kingdom Hearts series has ever given us. And I was blown away by it. I was quite moved by it. And you get to then go through this whole like series of areas. It was like the first Kingdom Hearts game, when you get to re-explore areas from the worlds you've been to in your whole adventure. Kingdom Hearts 3 did that again with the whole, Destiny thing, and you get to fight this really cool boss. Was it a Reaper? A Wraith? It was, no, it was neither of those. A Lich King, right? Lich. Just great. Love that. Excellent concept. Just one of the last things you do in the game before the final fight is fighting this particular Heartless, a very special Heartless, to undo death and give everyone a second chance. And that was cool. That was really cool. And it does serve a purpose, because again, this ties into the ending, which I'll get to in a bit. But, oh man. To some people, they don't really care for that chapter. For me, it was just one of the most memorable parts of the game, and just one of the coolest things about the end of the game for me. I really liked the final world. Really liked it. So yeah, getting into the ending, you go to the Keyblade Graveyard, you get into the final fights of the 7 Guardians versus the 13 Darknesses, and wow! Wow! Boss rush. One excellent boss rush. So well done. And I'm looking forward to seeing how the DLC expands on this and gives us more characters to play as in that. That seems to be the case. But, oh man, it was great. Oh man. It was very indulgent. Let's be honest. It was a bit indulgent. We just see characters like Riku and the Xehanorts, and even organization members like Luxu and Marluxia. They all get little speeches to Sora. I really loved Luxur's moment. I really loved his little moment where he like gives Sora a card and says, well, if I can't win, I hope you win. It's just a great wee moment from him. Classic Luxur, who's just like, fair play, and since you beat me, I want you to win. I don't want my team to win if I'm not with them, Just, I love Luxur. He's a great character. He deserves better. He really deserves more, and I hope we see more of him. I know Luxur is a bland character to a lot of people because we don't see much of him. What we do see of him is enjoyable. He's a great character. He never gets enough screen time. We never get enough time with him. I feel like he's a great character trying to get out of the role that he's constantly written into of being a minor side character. Give us more Luxord, please. I loved him in the Pirates of the Caribbean world. It was great. Total sidetrack there. Segue into Luxorville. Getting back to the indulgent sort of final speeches that a lot of the villains gave as you defeat them one by one. That was good. No, that was satisfying, alright? I mean, I know that in universe it's kind of like, alright, hit pause, we need to have the characters deliver a big final speech and it's very grandiose and this is like their farewell, but you know what? I love that. Respect to the characters, respect to the legacy of these characters, respect to the fact that they have been with us for the past like 10 games, and after all these years of having these games and these stories with these characters, for a lot of them this is their final hurrah, and we get to have a proper send-off to characters like Ansem and Xemnas, and it's great. It's a great way to just sort of send these characters off, to sort of acknowledge the role that they played and to just sort of give them something of a salute to everything that they were, and to have them in their final moments just appreciate everything that they had and everything that they were before they go for good. And then that's just beautiful. That was beautiful. I loved it. Alright, I loved seeing that. It was great. Just really enjoyed all the one-to-one moments. It's fan service, and you know what? Fan service is a good thing because you're providing service to your fans, right? Let no one ever say that fan service is a bad thing. Because if it is a bad thing, if you view fan service as a bad thing, then you're not being serviced as a fan, are you? It's not a fan service in the first place. It's a fan disservice. The point is, characters were done justice, And speaking of characters getting done justice, we got to see the Sea Salt trio and the Wayfinder trio reunited. Massive spoiler there, but hey, there you go. The game's been out for ages. Terra, Aqua, and Ven reunited, hugging each other in tears. beautiful. Roxas, Axel, and Xion reunited, hugging each other in tears. Beautiful. Just, my investment in those characters, especially the Sea Salt trio. They are my favourite trio. They are one of the best written trios in the whole Kingdom Hearts series, and the way that they were reunited, the way that they came back together, the way Roxas just stepped in and had that moment where he's just like, I got this. That is still, like, I'll get into that because it is technically one of the best and worst cutscenes in the game at the same time. Following that though, when they defeat Sayax and, like, Lee says his big goodbye to Sayax and then, well, temporary goodbye, but they have a proper heart-to-heart with each other before he goes, and that's just brilliant. Excellent handling on their relationship, and then the three of them are given a moment to properly process that they're back together. That is one of the best cutscenes in the game. In fact, it's probably my favourite cutscene in the game. It was the closest I came to tears. I don't know if I ever did cry. I was definitely emotional, believe me. I am very invested in these characters, and even if I'm not a very tear-jerking person, that got me. It was beautiful, just so good. I'm so happy that those characters are back together. I'm so happy that they earned their happy ending at last, and finally the trauma and tragedy that the series has thus far been throwing at them is out of the way. Except for the Destiny trio, sad times. Again, get to that later. Actually no, you know what? Let's get to it now. I'm getting this out of the way right now. I got a rant about this. So going back to the topic of doing justice to your characters, there are a few problems I had with the game, you know? Not everything was quite wrapped up. A few loose ends here and there, sure. Some of the Disney worlds, not too well handled. Some of the story, the pacing, I've complained about that a bit before, you know, could have been better. Here's the one thing that I hated. One thing in Kingdom Hearts 3 that I hated. Completely hated. They completely did not do justice to Kairi's character. All these characters are getting, you know, a big hurrah. This is a big final battle. So many characters are getting shown off and having, like, all these big emotional moments, powerful speeches, and just great last words. And even the heroes, also the heroes are getting moments to shine, moments where they do something awesome in cutscenes, and you get to see them teaming up and working together. Great chemistry, great character relationship dialogue. The whole sequence of scenes where everyone says, like, wow, this could be our final fight, and we've been through a lot, huh? Great stuff. The Riku replica. Great stuff. Also very emotional. Well done character, bringing him back and suddenly having a purpose one last time. And he sacrificed himself for Naminé. Again, so sweet. I just, Riku replica, man. But Kairi was butchered. She was ruined. And listen, I'm not going to hear it. People have complained about Kairi and said, Kairi was rubbish. I hated her in the game because she didn't do anything. Kairi is not a person. She is not a real person. She does not have agency. She is written by writers who gave her nothing to do. And they didn't have to do that. She is one of Sora and Riku's best friends. She is effectively Sora's girlfriend. She is Sora's major love interest for the whole series and has been one of the main characters since the first game. And is one of the 7 princesses of Heart. And is now a Keyblade wielder who has just received a whole heap of training that is supposed to do something for her. Sora spent an entire game not even receiving formal training, just going out and fighting enemies. And he's combat ready. Kairi has the opportunity to do the same thing, or at least receive formal training, so at least has the chance to be on the equivalent level of a fully trained fighter. Lee should be the same as well, more so for him because he has had combat experience even without a Keyblade with other weapons before. Both of them just barely did anything in the final fight. Both of them never got the chance to shine. You get one fight, one brief fight, where you fight alongside Kairi and Lee. And what little you see of their fighting style in that little bit of gameplay is good stuff. It's really cool to see Kairi's fighting style. It's really cool to see Lee's fighting style. I love the way he spins his Keyblade around. And that's it. Then they're just... Okay, Lee, he gets kind of shafted to the background, but you know what? He has a big character speech, he has a big moment, he gets reunited with his friends. Good for him, you know? At least he's there as a character. At least his presence is still felt. They did Kairi real dirty. Xemnas just shows up, and even though Sora is standing between Xemnas and Kairi, he just teleports behind her, grabs her, and kidnaps her. Somehow nobody's capable of stopping this. It's forced. It's really forced. And, you know, what was the point of all this training if Kairi can just be kidnapped like that? What's to stop Xemnas from doing this to, like, most of the other crew, to be honest, if all he needs to do to incapacitate someone is to lightly grab their wrist? Kairi was turned into a damsel in distress. Like, this is a bad thing to see in any story. You know, this could be an original game with new characters. Forget the fact that there's a legacy to these characters. Forget the fact that there has been build-up since Dream Drop Distance, that Kairi is going to get trained and is going to be a big part of the final battle and is going to finally be able to stand alongside her friends, which is something that she has said multiple times since Kingdom Hearts 1 that is something she wanted to do. This is a character who is growing and wants to be a part of her friends' lives, wants to protect her friends, wants to help them. She is every bit a hero as much as Sora and Riku is at heart. She wants to help, she wants to be a fighter, she wants to be with them. And considering that this is meant to be a trio, it has ever since the first game been treated like a duo. Sora and Riku get heaps of character development, heaps of dialogue, while Kairi is barely in the games. And that sucks. She has been written out as a character and just... Like, I recognise that some people won't care, and that's fine, I get it. You have your tastes, you have your opinions, you have your own preferences on how characters can or should be handled or whatever. It's bad writing. At the end of the day, it's bad writing. And it only got worse. Kairi was kidnapped, that was bad enough. But then, she doesn't even get to say anything. She doesn't get to do anything. We never see her again. And the one time we do see her, she's already unconscious and at Xehanort's mercy. All he does is hold her up as a hostage. And then finally, even though he has no reason to do this, he kills her. Like, I know that she's technically not dead. There's the whole final world thing and Sora manages to bring her back with the power of waking. There's the ending for you. But it was forced. It was very forced. Kairi, as a character, has all of this build-up and has all of this emotional character development, and honestly, the scenes that she's in, when she's talking with Lee, I love the fact that they became friends. I love the fact that they're like besties, training together. I love that they patch things up after the whole, hey, I kind of kidnapped you and that kind of really sucks, but they understand each other, they forgive each other, they move on. That's beautiful, that's gorgeous, that's great. Kairi talking about how she wants Naminé to be able to experience the same thing she does. Beautiful, wonderful, excellent character writing. Great stuff all around. Until you get to the final battle. She has that one great moment of glory where she literally saves everybody's lives. Everybody is killed, and it's because of her that that doesn't become the canon ending to the game. She, with her power, and Sora, together, they hold everyone together, keep them back, and manage to rescue them. It's a great joint effort. A great moment where she actually gets to use a power that we never really get to see her use. Apart from the one time when she brought Sora back from being a Heartless back in Kingdom Hearts 1. She as a character, she has this power at her fingertips, supposedly, and we actually get to see it in action in a big way. And that was great! But it's like Square Enix saw that and thought, okay, she's done enough. Let's just move her aside now. Let's just use her as a tool, as a lamp, as an obstacle, an object. She is an object for Sora to crave, for Sora to want to save, for Sora to be motivated by. She is going to be sacrificed so that Sora can grieve and feel anger and make Xehanort look like a really bad villain and make the players really want to take him down. She is used by the writers. And again, it is horrible writing and just kind of sexist as well. Because again, damsel in distress? Have we really not moved on from this? Fridging the hero's girlfriend? Really? Like, as far as writing goes, this is as low as we can sink. And we sunk pretty far here. So many good things in Kingdom Hearts 3. And then that happened. That scene, she gets kidnapped, that was bad enough. I was mad about that. Then she just gets killed. Like that. It's not satisfying. And it's weird. It is... I want to blame sexism. You know, it's the easy thing to blame, sure, but I feel like there is definitely still a lot of it around, and I feel like it's at least partially responsible for some of this. But there are a lot of people who really didn't think that Kairi deserved to be in the final battle, or should have had the potential to be in the final battle. Appreciate the fact that she is older than Sora was in the first Kingdom Hearts game, and he spent an undeterminate length of time, the length of a video game, which we have here, Kingdom Hearts 3 is the length of a video game, training, effectively, by fighting monsters, and he was able to take on and defeat this massive boss, one of the Xehanorts, Ansem. He took on this boss in a Final Form-esque massive battle and took him down. Sora did this at age 14, Kairi is 15, maybe 16, and she's had a whole game's worth of actual tutoring, actual, like, instructed combat. She should have access to abilities and powers on the level of someone who has leveled up. She should be someone who has trained specifically for this fight. She should be able to take part as an equal. And think about it, remember the final battle before the big final boss against Xehanort? Think about how that was Sora, Riku and Mickey against Master Xehanort, Ansem, Xemnas and young Xehanort. I know that like Master Xehanort was kind of in the background, not really like an actual boss that you fought, but still, he was there and he had an effect on the battlefield and on the fight. That was climactic and awesome, sure. Sora and Riku, old buddies, classic best friends from the first game, fighting against these guys, and Mickey, you know, the icon of Disney, the guy who's been like their big, one of their strongest allies from the start, who's something's been in the background, something's been in the foreground, ultimately always been one of the biggest heroes alongside them, fighting against all these major Xehanort players. Epic fight. How much better would it have been if Kairi had been there too? Think about it. She has every right to be there. She should be trained up to a decent level where she can hold her own against at least young Xehanort. I mean, like I said, Sora, at a younger age, fought Ansem, who's one of the people there. Sora, who has not had formal training, fought Ansem, who is also there. Like seriously, in terms of skill levels, young Xehanort has no right to be there. Can we just appreciate the fact? This is something I've been saying for a while, and it annoys me that people don't seem to notice this. Young Xehanort has no combat experience. He is specifically stated to be Xehanort from the islands, on Destiny Islands. And sure, he's older, he is old enough, he looks like 18 or something, but still, he is a guy who has effectively just been plucked off the islands with no combat training. He is a guy who has not even received the keyblade. And that was weird. In Dream Drop Distance, he was able to use it because Master Xehanort possessed him. This is a real thing. That's actually in the Ultimania. That is how that boss fight worked. That is why that boss fight happened. But in here, in Kingdom Hearts 3, suddenly he's able to use the keyblade all the time, and that's just kind of accepted. That's just what he does. That's his thing. Okay, I guess. Okay, sure. You know what? I can accept that. But it doesn't change the fact that he has, if anything, less combat experience than Kairi does. Or actually, to put it a better way, he has less right to be more powerful than Kairi is. Kairi is a Princess of Heart, and she has a Keyblade, and she has actually fought people before. And she has had formal training, again, I've said that a lot, by the time she gets to the final fight in Kingdom Hearts 3. Assumedly, young Xehanort has probably received his own kind of training. If, like, the 13 Darknesses are preparing for this fight, surely they would have, you know, made sure that less combat experience members received combat experience. But young Xehanort, from the start, has always just been a guy that's just somehow had a lot of power. He's just somehow has, like, all of this experience, even though he is canonically Xehanort at his youngest point, before he's even received the Keyblade, before he can even control darkness or anything. He's just somehow able to hold his own in a fight like this. I'm just trying to say that, like, for some reason, he gets, like, a secret boss fight in Birth by Sleep where he's really strong and really powerful. He has no right to have that kind of power, but you know what? It's a teaser. It's just like a little thing they threw in to set up for him coming up in Dream Drop Distance, so whatever. In canon, in the story, why is young Xehanort this powerful? He shouldn't be. He isn't. And he is the weakest of the bosses. So again, I have to say, think about how cool it would have been. Imagine the 3 Xehanorts of relatively different skill levels fighting against Sora, Riku, and Kairi. Also relatively different skill levels. Like, Kairi could at least hold her own against young Xehanort, while Sora and Riku could hold their own against Ansem and Xemnas. Like, they're the more powerful ones. And you got Master Xehanort in the background manipulating the environment. Mickey could be combating him as well, because Mickey's there too. And it's like, that would be a proper 4-on-4 fight. And that would be the people that we started this series with, fighting against the villain who has always been pulling the strings in every major game. That would have been amazing. Think about it. Just the whole team united. Like, the Destiny trio united in this one big epic climactic fight. It would have taken a fight that was already awesome and made it more awesome. To be very clear about this, I am not against Kairi dying. I am not against Kairi dying in the story, getting struck down by the villains, and having that have a big impact on the story. Like, Sora then... Because, like, Kairi's death causes the ending. And, you know, let's get into that a little bit now. The ending is Sora sacrifices himself. He uses the power of waking to bring Kairi back, but loses himself in the process. So Kairi's death effectively causes that to happen and results in the result of the game overall. And I'm fine with that. I really am. But it needs to be handled better. If you're going to kill off a character, take it from their perspective. Have they really accomplished much? Have they really had the moment to shine? Have they really stood out and been able to make an impact, to have, like, the kind of glory that every other character had, every other hero had? Yen Sid did something. Yen Sid showed up and had a moment where he held back hordes of Heartless. He finally got off his chair and got involved, and I cheered when I saw that. That was amazing. But Kairi can't get one fight in her. She doesn't get one battle alongside Sora properly. She couldn't stand alongside Sora and Riku. I think if they were gonna kill her, there were so many other ways they could have done it that would have been better. Even if she got kidnapped by Xemnas, we could have seen her at least try to take on Master Xehanort. And this is the kind of thing that I wish was in the DLC, but I know it won't be because for some reason the writers hate Kairi. Or at the very least, they're indifferent and they're not trying, or they just don't understand how to do it right. They can't give her a single moment where she does something that carries weight, that just shows her, shows who she is, that lets her be someone who's more independent. Again, she doesn't even get to say anything. As Xehanort, like, prepares to strike her down, she doesn't get any last words. She doesn't get a moment where she gets to, like, say something in defiance or pleading or anything. She doesn't get a voice. She is literally used as an object and just struck down like that, and I can't get over it. As I said, this is the one thing in Kingdom Hearts 3 that I hated, and it is the one thing I'm going to talk about the most, because it's the one thing that needs to be addressed the most. There were so many better ways that this could have been handled, and they didn't do it. They really didn't do it. Think about it, Xehanort had no reason to kill her. Sora and Riku are there, and as long as she's alive, he has a bargaining tool. Killing her just means, alright, well now there's no reason for the Keyblade Warriors to fight, but he's motivating them with anger. How about motivating them by saying, like, if you don't fight me, I'll kill her? That's enough. They were already doing that. It's just pointless, and it was forced. Again, it was so forced. But what if he'd been doing that and Carrie's like, I'm not going to be used as a hostage, draws her Keyblade, attacks Xehanort. Doesn't work, obviously, and Xehanort instinctively strikes her back and kills her. And he doesn't care because he's Xehanort, but, like, at least she got a moment where she tried. A moment where she made a choice. She made a choice and it got her killed. If she had been fighting alongside Sora and Riku from the start, they could have taken down the Xehanorts, but then, just as it looks like things are going their way, Master Xehanort strikes her down. Because as strong as she is and as much as she's prepared for this, and even though she is fighting alongside her friends and doing everything she can, she's still inexperienced, and ultimately, falling in battle is a realistic possibility of fighting in battle. I mean, that would have been cool. That would have been that would have been heartbreaking, but it would have been understandable. And at least she died on her own terms. She died fighting. That would have been a much more honourable way to handle her character. A much better way to write her character. But unfortunately that didn't happen. And I'm angry. So believe it or not, after saying all that, I don't really consider myself to be like that much of a feminist. Partly because just the kind of associations that feminism has is not always super positive, but I do believe in equality, and in general the Kingdom Hearts female characters aren't really as well treated as the guys, and Kairi in particular is meant to be our female lead, but she is never treated like it, and that bugs me. From a writing standpoint, that bugs me. And as a character, she's a lovable character. She's a really nice, sweet character, and she has so much good in her, but we never see it. The little we do see is great, but they never focus on it. They never develop it. They never flesh her out. This is the girl that says, maybe waiting isn't good enough, and then is content, suddenly, to sit back on Destiny Islands while Sora and Riku go off to do the Mark of Mastery. Like Mickey, Donald, and Goofy, they are there for the Mark of Mastery, even though they have nothing to do except wait for them. Kairi isn't even allowed that much respect. And it's just, it just speaks to me that the writers aren't really thinking about the characters. And that's fine, you can think about the story, put that first, but it results in moments like this. A character getting fridged, a character getting screwed over, and me getting angry about it because she, despite being a great character that I like, is wasted. And the potential for something even more awesome is lost because of it. So I hope you understand my point of view on that. It's one moment where I'm just going to get really serious and stop joking around and just get really mad because, man, I love this series, so when it does something wrong, it upsets me. That's why fans tend to have the most vitrolic reactions to things rather than their haters, because fans have more of a stake in what the series does. It sucks, but that's the way of things. So, sorry for that long rant. I'll be sure to timestamp it, and hopefully now that I've said all that, we can move on. Do believe me, I really do love this game, but there was one thing, one fatal flaw, that just stops it from being something that I adored. Okay, so now that that's out of the way, can we just move on to something more positive? For one thing, once you get that out of the way, and ignore the fact that nobody really addresses Kairi's death, like, people just moved on really fast after that, which was also really something that really bugged me. People just didn't really treat it like the actual death of a character, which is effectively what it was, until the ending. The actual final boss fight against Xehanort, the final boss of Kingdom Hearts 3, was spectacular. It was a really cool fight. Fighting all the different 13 Xehanorts, it was a bit messed up, and I'm sad that we didn't get to explore more of Scala ad Kylum, was it? that final world area, which harkened back to where Xehanort was trained, which is interesting. A whole new place from his backstory that we're now just learning about. I wonder if it's tied to the Land of Departure in some way. I don't think it is. It seems to be its own kind of world, but what is it? What happened to it? I don't know. Much more lore that's just been thrown in our face and then been abandoned without us really getting full elaboration on it. That's just Kingdom Hearts for you. But getting down to it, it was a very cool location. The music was incredible, and then you fight against all the Xehanorts, and just, it was a tremendous final fight. It was a glorious final fight. Really good cap off to the series. Probably not the best final boss in the series, probably, but it was still a brilliant final boss, and it really did justice to the end of Kingdom Hearts 3. I love that you fought him at one point in an area that was surrounded by walls, so it was like land, and then you fought him underwater, so sea, and then you fought him up in the air, sky. Like, just that whole trinity has always been a big thing in the Kingdom Hearts series, and to see that visually done in a boss fight, the final boss fight no less, was very cool. And then there's a big climactic battle against him wielding the keyblade. The keyblade's design still sucks. I have never liked the design of the keyblade, and the fact that they went with that and said, yeah, this is the final keyblade, it just looks weird. It looks really weird. I feel like they could have done a lot better with it. Why the crossed Kingdom Keys? Why? It just makes the Kingdom Key feel less special. Can I just say as well, by the way, I am a guy who, like, really cares about the cinematics of a cutscene, and I have never liked changing keyblades in the Kingdom Hearts games. So many people do it because it's all about the statistics and they just want to be as strong as possible. Stuff that. I am not going to fight Heartless with a big candy cane. I want the Kingdom Key. It is sleek and elegant in its design, and it's iconic. It is Sora's weapon, and seeing him wield anything else feels wrong. So I really appreciate that Kingdom Hearts 3 let me upgrade my keyblade so that, like, it could still hold its own, and it didn't always have to be a weak weapon at any point in the game. And I could also change keyblades at will, so I can still experience, like, keyblade transformations in battle, but then when I want to change back before, like, finishing a boss fight or, like, entering a cutscene, I can just, entering a new area for a cutscene, I can just change back to the Kingdom Key. The keyblade that is the only keyblade that Sora should ever wield, except for Oblivion and Oathkeeper and a couple of others that are just really cool, admittedly, but the Kingdom Key is Sora's weapon, alright? I'm never letting it go. I love it with all my heart. Little off-topic thing, but yeah, the final boss was excellent, and then Xehanort gets a little ending. He does not get redeemed. Okay guys, look, let me say this now, right? Xehanort does not get redeemed. That was not a redemption that he got in his final scene. What happened was that Ericus appeared and forgave him. They moved on, and they passed on together. Xehanort accepted defeat with grace and was forgiven by Ericus, but he was not redeemed. That does not make up for everything he did. Okay? Can we just make that clear? I just had to say that because, you know, some people feel like Xehanort got an unearned redemption arc. It was not an arc! This was one cutscene where he just was like, well, I lost, fair play. That's not redemption. That's just him accepting. And it's a beautiful thing. I'm glad that Xehanort got that ending. Just as a villain, he was very twisted in all the things he did and how corrupt he became, but I like the fact that at the end of when it was all said and done, he just kind of admitted, well, it didn't work. If it was ever going to work, it should have worked with me, but it didn't, so you know what, it's fine. You guys call the shots now. This is your time, and I will move on. Very mature thing to do. I really wish, again, going back to this a little bit, but it really needs to be said. Again, people really treated, like, him killing Kairi, again, Sora's girlfriend, Riku's best friend, like, so many people have investment in her, and nobody really brought up the fact that, hey, by the way, you killed my friend. You gonna say something about that? You gonna answer for that at any point? I just wish Xehanort had said, hey, sorry about that. I shouldn't have done that. That was wrong. Yeah, just something. Throw me a bone here, guys. Come on. It's just, again, she was treated like an object, and I hate that. I hate it so much. But anyway, in spite of that, I am glad that Xehanort got a semi-happy end. A bittersweet ending, I guess you could say. And I like that he kind of patched things up with Ericus in a way. Ericus really has been kind of a wasted character series-wide thing, but Kingdom Hearts 3 did a fairly nice thing at the end to give him a bit more to do. Speaking of which, Namine, great character, big character in the series, and she gets one optional cutscene, but nonetheless a very important cutscene in the final world, which actually explains why they didn't all die the second time. It's like actually a very important cutscene in that sense. Possibly didn't even happen if you didn't notice it. And then the final cutscene, the very, very end, she gets brought back and comes back, and it's like, yeah, Namine's back, great, she was saved too, everybody's brought back, everybody's a happy ending. Screw you guys who always said that they were never going to come back and they're getting a tragic ending just accepting being part of Sora and Kairi. No, they're not. They deserve better. They are their own people, and finally that's been validated. That's a great ending. And overall, the ending was great. Beautiful music, Well done, Utada Hikaru, just lovely song, and a great montage of seeing everybody just done justice, and then everyone celebrating together, having fun together at Destiny Islands. I really can't think of a better way to end the series. And then you have Sora and Kairi sitting on the tree, and they're holding hands. Kairi's kind of crying, and he's like, what's going on? They're looking at each other, they're staring longingly at each other, they're like, what's going to happen? I was kind of wondering, are they going to kiss? Is this a big romantic moment for them? And then Sora just disappeared. And the game ended there, because of course it did. Of course Kingdom Hearts 3 just slams you. Just slam cuts away from Sora just vanishing without any explanation. That's how it ends, with our main character getting Thanos'd. Just, alright. It's so typical, but at the same time, like I said, I really liked the ending. I actually really liked that. I loved how bittersweet it was. I think happy ending for everyone except Sora, who ends up sacrificing it all, but he's not gone for good. He's out there somewhere in some form, and you know, the secret ending implies he's not dead for good. That would be pretty depressing, but he paid a cost. He paid a fine to bring back Kairi, and it was a noble thing to do, a heroic thing to do, a great thing considering their relationship, just great development on that, payoff on that, but it's sad. He's gone for now, and we just have to deal with that. It's heartbreaking, it really is when you really understand it, but it was good. It was a very good ending. I liked it, I really did like it. Again, I do wish it had been handled better. I wish the whole build-up to it had been handled better, but given what the ending is, I'm very pleased with it, and I really liked it. I do think people were kind of hoping that Sora and Kairi would kiss. Like, you know, they are the ship, they are the official canon couple, so there's really no reason not to, basically. And I feel like it could have been good if, like, they had done that, and then while they were kissing, Sora disappeared. That would have been flippin' romantic. But, you know, whatever. What we get is still very good, still very sweet. And it was still a very intimate moment. It's as intimate as Kingdom Hearts ever gets. It's like Pokemon. You're allowed to look like you like each other, but not too much, okay? Can we ever have the characters just act like regular human beings, just once? And then we have the after credit scenes. Just going right through the ending here, after credit scenes. Xigbar. Oh man. Oh man, that was a good twist. I loved that, that was incredible. I was blown away and I was just, oh, that was great. Absolutely brilliant. I've always wanted to know what Xigbar's deal is, and as much as I'm not really a fan of the Foretellers and their arc and the whole Keyblade War thing, I do like the Foretellers storyline, their specific side of it. Everything else about the Kingdom Hearts Keyblade War has not been satisfying to me, but the Foretellers I like as characters, and their conflict was interesting. Back cover video was very interesting. And now we see that Xigbar is Luxu, and he's been following the box throughout history, like taking on different forms using some kind of magic or whatever. That's incredible. And the fact that he was the one manipulating Xehanort the whole time, that is incredible. It's insane. It's absolutely insane, but it's brilliant. Brilliantly insane, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. That is Kingdom Hearts in a nutshell right there. Thank you, Xigbar. One of my favourite characters, and just even more reason why. Just excellent reveal. And setting up for the next arc. That said, Maleficent and Pete then watch and they seem like they're going to get involved, and I have to say, they shouldn't have been in this game at all. They could have been in that cutscene where Xigbar reveals himself and they're watching, but there was no reason for the game throughout to set them up as villains who are looking for a box and they're going to do bad things with it. And then nothing happens. There's a fun moment in Hercules' World where they find Pandora's box and they just kind of cast it aside. And I love that it looks like the Disney equivalent of Pandora's box, but it's funny, that was funny. But like, yeah, Maleficent and Pete, they were non-entities. And there was no need for them to be in the game at all if what little they did was that. They just didn't accomplish anything meaningful enough for them to really justify, for us to justify their presence. They were purely there to set up for the future, and considering that Maleficent was like one of the biggest main antagonists of the first Kingdom Hearts game, I feel like she should have had more of a role, even if it wasn't much. Even if she doesn't have to get super involved in the Keyblade War, I just wish she'd done more, like she'd had more of an impact, more of a presence. Because as a character, her and Pete, their dynamic is fun, and I want to see more of that, but it was just a little bit lackluster. Well, you know what makes up for that? The secret ending that shows that Sora is in Shibuya. The world ends with you, guys! Like, it's The World Ends With You! Have I ever gone on enough about how much I love The World Ends With You? It is one of my favourite games of all time, it is one of the best games ever made, it is the best DS game on the market. The World Ends With You is just a fantastic game, and if you haven't played it, you need to play it. It's on the Nintendo Switch. The World Ends With You, final remake. I need to play it. I need to get a Nintendo Switch just to play this, because all the characters are brilliant, character development is great, themes are phenomenal, just love everything about it. Great story, great gameplay, just fun, engaging, insightful, brilliant art style. Everything about this game is brilliant, and I love their appearance in Dream Distance, but it was underutilized, and the fact that they made a promise to Sora, and Sora was like, hey, I'll see you guys again, and like, yeah, come to Shibuya.
I've been hoping and praying that they would just reappear in Kingdom Hearts at some point.
I'm not literally praying, that would be a bit blasphemous. But the point is, it's actually happening! Sora died, and he went to the Shibuya of The World Ends With You, which is a thing in The World Ends With You. It's like they thought, you know, there doesn't seem to be enough of a demand for The World Ends With You 2, but people want another Kingdom Hearts game all the time, so let's just put them together! Needless to say, I am insanely excited, and I was like, I'll admit, by the time I was getting to the end of Kingdom Hearts 3, I was like, can we just end the saga neatly? Can we just have a concise, happy ending and just leave it there? I don't really want, like, I love the Kingdom Hearts series, and I'm willing to see where they go next, but I'd kind of like a break. I feel like the series needs to just sort of step back a bit and relax a bit and chill a bit. Now I know that The World Ends With You is a thing in it, in some form. Like, it's not exactly The World Ends With You. It's kind of its own original thing. Also, Virum Rex. Clearly a lot of Final Fantasy Versus 13 abandoned concepts getting put to use because Nomura wants them badly and he deserves them, darn it. Look at the flipping work he's put into this series. It's not been easy. Can't be easy being in charge of this much. And the man is a mad genius. He's not the best person all the time when it comes to writing. I think I've made that clear enough, but he does know what he's doing in a lot of ways, and I can't imagine the amount of pressure that must have been on him to write the finale to this saga. And I kind of wish it was a bit more neatly tied up, but you know what? He did well, and it's a solid ending. Not everyone's going to bother catching up on the next Kingdom Hearts game. I think I will. I don't think I'll be like making it super priority, and I'll probably actually watch the trailers for this one, but you know what? I'm still looking forward to it. I'm still invested, and I'm still looking forward to seeing where the things go next. Sora's got to have a happy ending, man. Sora needs a break. Someone give him a day off. I don't know to what capacity The World Ends With You is back in the game. I really hope they bring back the characters. They might not. It sounds like they've said not to get our hopes too much up, but The World Ends With You is such a fantastic game and it deserves so much, and seeing it involved in Kingdom Hearts in any way is great. And I am curious to see where this Virum Rex stuff goes. I thought it was funny when it was just like a random ad break in the middle of the Toy Story world. People were very confused by that, understandably, and it was funny. But then it becomes relevant, and it looks like the Virum Rex characters are actually a thing. How does that tie into the Toy Story world? What's going on? I don't know, but it's fun. It's fun. I'm starting to reach a point where maybe I'm just going to stop trying to understand the Kingdom Hearts series so much and just roll with it. I've enjoyed trying to understand it so much, but I do think that it's going a bit far. Even I think that the Kingdom Hearts series is going a bit too far and trying too hard to do too much. And I wish they would just simplify a bit. Just simplify a bit. You have enough. You have enough. Like, you don't need to add new things. New Princesses of Heart? What? There's a cycle to this and it roulettes through people? Like, okay, that kind of makes sense, but what's the system here? How do you know what the system is, and why are they not relevant at all if you're setting them up in the first place like they are? You kind of get what I'm saying here. This, in a way, sums up Kingdom Hearts 3 as a whole. Full of great things, but it muddles itself up too much. And if they didn't do that, it really would be the perfect finale. Yeah, that's everything there is to say about the story, so there's not too much left. Said a lot about the characters as well. Remy was in the game. Remy! He was the mouse from Ratatouille. He was a chef. I was not expecting him. He was the one Disney element of the game that I did not know was coming. And when he showed up, I was like, Remy! Yeah! Brilliant. And he does this whole cooking minigame. I love that. That was beautiful. And also, one more thing related to characters and story. Sora, Donald, and Goofy. Just excellent development on their part. I love that trio. Sora, Donald, and Goofy obviously kind of have to be one of the best trios in the series, considering how much they're the focus. And as ever, it's great that Donald and Goofy are basically Sora's parents. They are always just keeping an eye on him and babysitting him half the time. Because Sora he's matured a lot, but he still has his moments of childishness, and it's lovely to see. Their friendship is great, gorgeous. I love them interacting and having fun and like teasing each other and just walking out with them to the final fight. I get like that moment where Donald and Goofy, like, they follow Sora even though Sora's like, I'm gonna do this alone. They're like, no, we're coming with you, mate. That was brilliant. I would have been way more hyped about it if it wasn't for the aforementioned Kyrie Rant incident. I knew that I was still recovering from and still annoyed by, but there was still a lot of great stuff in the game, and a lot of it has to do with Sora, Donald, and Goofy. They were just, as always, fantastic trio. So a couple of things about the worlds. Like, the Disney worlds are well done. Really well done. I've said that before. If you want to know what my favourite Disney World was, I don't know. I think maybe Pirates of the Caribbean. I really liked it. I really enjoyed how it went all Assassin's Creed 4 on us. Here, you have your own boat. You're sailing around. You can just, get into ship-to-ship combat, and then you can get off the ship and swim around in anywhere you want, and jump into an island and explore that island and find treasure. And it was just it's fun, and you get to upgrade your ship, and I just got really into it. I just totally devoted myself to it. I had a blast. I really loved that. And the music is fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. If it's not that, then it's probably San Francisco. San Francisco was a great world as well. I loved it. I loved the story. The Big Hero 6 characters were great, and I just really enjoyed it. Tangled was also a lot of fun. Not the best story-wise, because it was kind of just rehashing the main plot of the film. It's annoying that they keep doing that. Give us more original content. But I did like that world. I really liked the sort of dynamic that the whole gang had with like Rapunzel and Flynn and that. So yeah, either San Francisco or the Pirates of the Caribbean world, like both of them were good. I really liked them. And the Pixar worlds were also very well done. You could clearly see they put a lot of thought into providing original stuff, which again, we didn't get enough of in other worlds. I feel really bad for Donna Murphy. They got her back to play Mother Gothel, and she has almost nothing new to say. There was one short scene where she talks to Sora, Donald, and Goofy about Rapunzel, and that's it. Apart from that, there was nothing new for her to say. Everything else that she said was just exactly what she said in the film, and I would be disappointed as a voice actress if I had to do that. You know, playing her specifically. If I was doing it, I'd be a voice actor because I'm not a female, but the point is, it was just kind of a waste, and it's annoying, it's sad. Frozen was even worse, by far, honestly. Just totally rehashed the plot of the film. Sora, Donald, and Goofy had zero impact. That was by far the worst world, okay? Not that it was too bad in terms of visuals, because again, you know, it's Kingdom Hearts 3, amazing, but or music, but like the world itself was just so aimless. The story was pointless. You spend like ages just trying to talk to Elsa. That is the entire plot of the world. We gotta go talk to Elsa. We gotta go talk to Elsa. Oh, we've been knocked down the mountain. Again. We gotta go talk to Elsa. They never accomplish their objective. You never get to speak to Elsa after you first meet her. The whole point of the world is wasted. You're just kind of in the background, literally being pushed into the background by other characters so that you don't get involved in the main story's events, so that it can play out the way that it plays out in the film. And it's just, Sora, Donald, and Goofy don't need to be here, so what's the point? You know, story-wise, it was really bad. But it had an excellent final boss. The scroll, I forget what you call it. I'm sorry. The massive wolf heartless boss fight that Hans turns into was awesome. It was an awesome fight. It was completely meaningless. Even that boss fight was like, alright, let's isolate you in this alternate dimension or something so that you don't get involved in the main story, and when you come back, it's like no time has passed. So it's very inconsequential in that sense, but it was still a very cool boss fight. It was still very good. And Marshmallow as a party character, that was awesome. So even the worst world in the game, because I'm calling it the worst world in the game, has its up points. That said, Twilight Town was quite underused. Only 2 areas? Well, wait. Only 1 area, wasn't it? I can't remember. There was just not much to the world. It was just a very small world. Considering how big of a world it's been before, it was so little to it. And I wish we could have at least gone to like the Station Hill, climb the clock tower, so you could just stand there. Just to stand there and take selfies. Like, you can take selfies in this game. That was fun. It was nice. I always just took a selfie with like every character in every Disney world. I had to be like, alright, one for the record book. It was great. It's just a fun. I love they're taking it from Final Fantasy 15. Why not? It's a great element, fun thing to do in the Kingdom Hearts game of all things. Kingdom Hearts 3 is so fun, guys. It was so fun. Not everything about it was good, as I've extensively covered, but it was such a fun game. That is all I really have to say at the end of the day. A couple more things I will just go over. Other wasted elements. We never got to go to Radiant Garden. Radiant Garden has been one of the biggest Kingdom Hearts worlds in every game. Every game! Whether it's Hollow Bastion or Radiant Garden or Hollow Bastion and Radiant Garden, it is like the big centerpiece world of the Kingdom Hearts series. It is the biggest original world of the Kingdom Hearts series. Next to perhaps Destiny Islands, even then, I would say that's more mysterious in some ways. But like, the point is, Radiant Garden was wasted. This is meant to be like a main hub world. Sora and the gang are always there. Leon and the gang are major characters. And that's another thing to address. No Final Fantasy characters? What do I think about that? It sucks. Honestly, it does. Not because I want to see Final Fantasy characters just to check off a checklist of this is a Kingdom Hearts thing and it needs to be done for the sake of being a Kingdom Hearts thing. I don't really care if we don't get Noctis or Lightning in Kingdom Hearts. I care about the fact that characters like Cloud and Sephiroth, characters like Leon and his whole crew, characters like Tidus, Waka and Selphie on Destiny Islands, they are already pre-existing Kingdom Hearts characters. Put aside the fact that they're Final Fantasy characters in Origin and are making cameos in the Kingdom Hearts series. In the Kingdom Hearts series, as far as its story is concerned, they are established characters. And honestly, this is one last thing to get angry about, because Kingdom Hearts is sometimes just treated as a product by the writers. You know, you can treat something like a product when you're marketing a game, you know, and you're trying to get people to buy a video game, because that's business. That is business, and that's how you should conduct business. That's how video game marketing should be done. That's how anything should be marketed. But when you're writing a story, look, if you don't have integrity to your story, I'm just not going to respect you. And when you write a story purely with the intention of trying to please people and appease people, or if you have some kind of like business agenda that goes into the writing of your story, if there's anything in a meta sense that affects your story beyond, like, I guess, certain political values or something that you could say, because sometimes it's important to be careful about what you write and what you write, who you write these things to. But if there's anything in a meta sense that affects how you write a story, it's just poor. It's really poor. Some people don't mind this. Some people have accepted this from the start and just, or even kind of expect this and don't care. I care. I care about the Kingdom Hearts franchise as a story. I care about it as like a fan of someone who cares about these characters. I care about seeing these characters done well, done justice. I feel like I've made that perfectly clear in this video. It really sucks that Square Enix had this whole attitude of, well, we're not going to put Final Fantasy characters in the Kingdom Hearts game this time because we don't think it needs them at this point. Kingdom Hearts is able to stand on its own. That's not the point. Sora and the characters have had this relationship with Leon and the gang, and if they're calling into Radiant Garden, which last we heard Leon and his gang were basically in charge of, why aren't they at least asking, hey, how are our old buddies? This is history. This is part of the series' story. This is part of its legacy. At the very least, you should acknowledge them. And it's annoying that they didn't. It's annoying that they just tried to pretend they don't exist because of the whole Final Fantasy thing, because of this whole meta idea that they need the Kingdom Hearts series to stand by itself and not rely on cameos. I don't care. It doesn't matter. It's good. It's fun. They are characters in this story and they matter to the story. They matter to the other characters. You look at this from an in-universe perspective and their lack of existence all of a sudden doesn't make sense, and it's a contradiction. It's not a retcon, not yet, but it's something that was jarring, and I'm bothered by it. I really am. Again, I don't mind if Final Fantasy characters aren't introduced or included for the sake of including Final Fantasy characters, but for the sake of continuing the story, we should have had certain characters in this. And one thing that's, they need to address this at some point. Cloud and Sephiroth. They had an entire subplot in Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2, and I know that for the most part this is kind of just like a service to Final Fantasy VII fans because it's a very popular game and they're very popular characters and their whole conflict is just a fun thing to reference and to show more of and to have more of. But it just doesn't feel like a complete Kingdom Hearts game if Sephiroth isn't there as a secret boss fight. He's been there for the first two Kingdom Hearts games. The second one that came with an entire Cloud subplot that implied that he comes from another world. A world out there that we haven't seen yet, maybe. Or maybe we have and we just haven't really established that. Also that Cloud is going off to fight a battle. And he has friends in Tifa and Aerith who care about him and are looking out for him. And Zack, flippin' Zack in Birth by Sleep, a friend of Aqua's, someone who asked her out no less and made her all flustered. If nothing else, Aqua should care about him if he's gone missing, which he did, and there's been no mention of him, and he must, because he's Zack, and because he clearly has some kind of connection to Cloud, and in the Birth by Sleep after credit scene you see a feather with Zack's disappearance. There's obviously a big connection here. There's obviously a big story that they're kind of writing up in the background. It's a little thing, a subplot. It is just a subplot, but it is nonetheless a plot within the Kingdom Hearts series that has thus far been inconclusive. It has not been concluded. We have not received closure on this matter. Imagine you haven't played a Final Fantasy game in your life and you're just playing the Kingdom Hearts games and you just see these guys as Kingdom Hearts characters. You're gonna want to know what's going on with them. You're gonna want to know what happened to them and where things are going with them. So I really hope a future Kingdom Hearts game addresses that, because it was very disappointing that Kingdom Hearts 3 didn't. It's just kind of a waste, you know? Speaking of secret bosses, Kingdom Hearts 3 didn't really have a special secret boss. It was just kind of a random heartless guy who's really tough. I mean, it's something. Bonus content. Kingdom Hearts 3 doesn't lack for it. Just in terms of general gameplay. It's fun to play. I love upgrading it. People say it's too easy. Yeah, fair enough, it is. I haven't played critical mode yet. I will. I've heard it's brutal. I don't really mind the difficulty. I'm here for the story first. And again, I know a lot of people aren't. I know a lot of people see this as a product first and they're just here to see cameos and things. But that's just, it's not my thing. People have the right to enjoy a story like that if they want, to enjoy it purely for the challenge factor, purely for the meta sense of what goes into it, the Disney characters and the Final Fantasy characters, and to see it all as just a big bunch of fan service and not as a independent, fun, unique story. But I don't see it that way, and I never will, and I don't think anyone should. I think it's a poor way to enjoy a story. You can do that, but it's bad writing. It's bad writing to treat a story like that. I think a story should have the integrity to just be true to itself and just retain what makes it, you know? I've rambled too much, I'm getting tired and I'm kind of losing track. Let me know if you don't really get my point, and I'll see if I can put it into better words in the comment section if I need to. I've addressed everything there is to address. I'm a big talking head. There are 2 more bullet points that I have to go over. Bash them out right now in the next 10 seconds. Summons were awesome. Summons were amazing. Never been too big of a deal in previous Kingdom Hearts games, but they were awesome. They're not even too big of a deal in this game. You don't need them, but they were awesome. They were so cool. I loved the summon. I loved summoning them just to see them because they were awesome. And one more thing. Since when could keyblades break? This is just another thing about the lore of Kingdom Hearts, just throwing things in your face out of nowhere with no explanation that just bugs me. Since when can keyblades break? Riku's keyblade broke! And he's like, can't use it. I'll just leave it here. They don't even act surprised. No explanation is given. This is a new thing. Keyblades can break, and he can get a new one? Is there a forge? Is there a keyblade forge? What? How? What? 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 Lee's keyblade! Xemnas grabs it and is like, this is a keyblade? No, it's a joke, and snaps it. He snaps it like a twig, and then Lee doesn't summon it again, but then he does in a later cutscene. So it's not gone for good. He can resummon it. How is it a joke? It's a real keyblade. It works, it functions the same as every other keyblade. Like, what? Kingdom Hearts, why? Why do you keep making things complicated? Again, not something that's related to the story. This is purely a lore thing that just gets thrown at us and then passed on. If you're following the story from the character's perspective, it's not a big deal. And it isn't in the long run, but I feel like we should know. What? And again, this is another meta thing. I feel like the only reason Riku's keyblade breaks is so he can get that new keyblade, which is clearly just a design that Nomura wanted to give him, because the car keys, I think it's another Final Fantasy Versus 13 thing. Another one of those elements that's now getting moved to the Kingdom Hearts series so that Nomura can do them in the first place. Could be bad. Could just be a big excuse to just do stuff that shouldn't be done. But it could be good. We'll see how it goes, you know? Infinite possibilities at this point. I really don't know what to expect from the Kingdom Hearts series next. And that's exciting. That is exciting. But I just hope it doesn't follow all the footsteps of the game that came before it. So, this is technically a review. I should give a final verdict, but I don't believe in reviewing things with numbers. We are not robots. We are human beings. We respond better to words than numbers, so if I'm going to sum up Kingdom Hearts 3, I should sum it up in a short phrase. So, the verdict of Kingdom Hearts 3 is that it is a very flawed, excellent game. It's got flaws, but it is excellent. And I would emphasize the positive more than I would the flaws, honestly. At the end of the day, I did love it. It is a great game. It's full of great stuff. It has some things in it that are very, 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 very bad, but overall, it's very, 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 very good. I hope that makes sense. I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope that tickles your fancy in terms of what my opinions on Kingdom Hearts 3 are, because I have said everything there is to say, and I'm not saying this again. I am not making any other videos on Kingdom Hearts 3 unless it's like a playthrough or something. As far as discussions go, we're done. Right? I said it all. Oh, well, I suppose I did promise I would do a summary video of Kingdom Hearts 3, like I did for the rest of the Kingdom Hearts series, but I won't do that until I've done more summary videos for other game series. It's highly requested, and, you know, I need more time to really get to grips with Kingdom Hearts 3 before that ever happens. But it will happen one day. And yes, in talking about summary videos, story summary videos, I am going to make them. I am going to make more YouTube videos in general. I'm not abandoning the channel. I've been quiet, but I have been busy. And hopefully it won't stay that way. Hopefully I'll get back into the rhythm of making things, but don't expect me to work too fast, okay? I'm sorry, but it's just, making videos really hasn't been a priority for me lately, and I can't prioritize it any more than I already am. It's just how things are for me right now, but maybe things will change one day. For now though, this is what you're getting, and you'll get more in the future, so look forward to that. And I hope you enjoyed this video. It's now done, and there's not much more left to say. You know, tell me what you thought about Kingdom Hearts 3 in the comments. If you have anything to add on or to say about what I've said, then do it. This is kind of the place to do it. It's kind of what it's for. And I will hear you out and I will chat with you because I don't have anything better to do. But also because you're great. I'm not gonna criticize you for existing. That would be a terrible thing to do. And that would make me a terrible person, which I am, but for different reasons. So, how about we just wrap up the video there. Thank you for watching, everyone, and I'll catch you another time. Goodbye. By the way, I'm wearing a Hufflepuff t-shirt because Hufflepuff are great.